This is Listening with Franklin Livingston, and our guest is Matthew Dean Hollis.
First, when you were 7, or when you wanted to switch from a Sunday school to the teaching, the message, how was your personal spiritual formation? What contributed to that? And how you developed a strong sense of God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and then you wanted to grow mature in that. I'm using more Pauline language. The Apostle Paul says that you should become mature, right, in the teaching.
So I think part of it started from seeing the people in my family. So my dad's dad, my grandpa, helped build the first Baptist church in New York.
Oh, wow.
He was part of that
Still
membership.
The church?
No.
Still, okay.
I don't think so. And my dad was a deacon at that church too. And so seeing my grandpa and my dad worshiping and doing certain things, I emulated that. I wanted to be like that, because I saw that was in correlation with what I was learning in Bible school. And my dad taught Bible school, and my mom did too. So they were very integral in the church. And it was one of those things where I was like, okay, this is what I'm already given, is being a child. What I want is to be a follower. I don't want to just be a child and held back from everything. I want to pursue, because that's what I saw my dad and my grandpa do. I saw them pursuing God. And I think that's where the initial kind of change happened. But what ended up happening after that was I now gained a personal relationship with God, rather than me going to Sunday school and being told things. Now I'm able to sit here and feel things, which is why I always come back to the hymns. Is that's where I've always felt it the most. That's where I've always felt God. Especially there are certain hymns that still really get to me. Amazing Grace. That was my grandmother's favorite hymn, and we sang it for her funeral. And every day, every time I hear it, I'll just evolve, because that's not just a connection for me. That's a connection to God, and the words mean something. So that kind of deep ingrained connection is what was able to grow, because I was able to be in the church and listen to the preacher and be able to take his words and then correlate them with the hymns, which are scripture. So kind of the whole package was this way to gain instant access to my salvation.
It's very interesting you say that. I was thinking of the hymns that have really I really feel connected to. One of them is, "To your Lord and Father of mankind, forgive our foolish ways," right? And that's why sometimes my vocabulary, if you remember when we were doing the reactions, so I was the biggest atrocity. This is not the word you're going to chat with somebody to use. But the wealth and the enrichment of these terminologies, and grace is the term has been frequently used in certain traditions. But I think the way this hymn explains that what that grace is, because there are certain terms we are so used to of. And those of us who have been in a church since early beginning, right? And then we just keep on listening to those things, grace and sin and forgiveness and salvation.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to just overlook the deeper and deeper meanings behind these things. And I think hymns have done a marvelous. I don't think I have the adequate vocabulary to talk about these hymns and their contributions in the spiritual formation of humankind. So what now I want to talk to you about this Holy Spirit. So in your case, the Spirit with capital S spoke through these 12 different people, and enforcing you to be the light. Right. To the light. You are the light of the world. Is that the verse?
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's the one in Matthew. Yeah.
So, and you were called to be, and you are called to be the light. So talk to me about those experiences. When did that happen, and how you got to that point from a high school?
So it actually started with doing Godspell at my high school, and I played Jesus.
Oh, cool.
Which, if you don't know, Godspell is Matthew. It's the book of Matthew put to a musical. So that in itself was such a great learning experience to be able to take the words of a whole entire book and be able to live them out, through a show. So that kind of started the whole be a light thing, because in the show, I'm Jesus. I was the light of the world, But then after that, it was right before graduation, and I had an English teacher who wrote in my yearbook, be the light. At the end, she was like, "You did a great job. Love you." Blah blah blah.
Wait. When you say English, we're not talking about English, British. We're talking about the person who taught English as a subject.
Yes. Right? Yeah. And she actually helped me with my college auditions for theater schools.
Oh, cool.
So she helped coach me on 2 different monologues. So she was awesome. I loved her. But she said, "Be the light." Then I had another friend who was actually in the show with me, who was suicidal. And I had known that, so I was one of the only people she could confide in and talk to, and know that I would be non-judgmental and just completely supportive of her. And she ended up putting in my yearbook also, you were the light for me.
Wow. And these people did not know, these 2 people, that what the other person had written.
No.
So this was the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And then I had another friend who also tried to commit suicide, and she said to me that I was the light that helped her out of that. And then had another friend who committed suicide. And when my whole friend group kind of were talking, trying to figure out what happened, all that kind of stuff, somebody, kind of pulled me aside and said, "Hey, you're a light right now. Like, thank you for being the light." And it was just one of those things where it's just like all, and then multiple other people just like kind of dropped that on me. But it was a time that I think I needed that reassurance that God is with me, God is in me and working through me before I got to college. Because college is its own experience, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things to be prepared with a mindset of already, this is who I am, and this is what I'm meant to do. So
your identity and your vocation got clearer in your mind.
Yeah.
And before going to the college, that in itself is a testimony, because that's like becoming a soldier before going onto a war.
Yeah. Onward, Christian soldier.
Yeah.
People
of faith, when they're called, when we read the Bible, starting from the Old Testament, there are always struggles involved. There's always time in the wilderness, if you will. And what was it for you starting from the childhood, challenges, struggles, dilemmas, discouragement. And how did you cope with that?
I think one of the big things was laziness. And the laziness stemmed from uh, this feeling of not being good enough.
Hmm.
If I ever tried and then failed, then that means I'm not good enough, right? But if I don't try and I fail, then okay, cool, I didn't try. So
I'm gonna
yeah.
actually be the devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't use that phrase, guys. I'm sorry. But Moses was sent by God to speak to the Pharaoh.
Mm.
And the Pharaoh did not let Israelites go for several times.
Mhm.
Was Moses not good enough? Or it wasn't God's will or the set time, or it wasn't in God's plan until God had that happen.
It was definitely not in God's time.
Yeah.
I think
because that's very
God had a
encouraging.
plan,
Because
right?
I had the same
Yeah.
issue, and I struggled for years and years, and all of us have different kinds of challenges.
Yeah.
But I think it's very easy to forget if it's not in God's will. Even Jesus is saying that this cup may be taken away from me.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen because that's not in God's plan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
at that time I understand you were thinking I'm not good enough. But in what ways?
Pretty much every way. Mostly with like school. I didn't want to try because then if I tried and then didn't get the grade, then that would be bad for me.
So there was a fear
for my
involved.
own. Yeah.
Fear of
It was more
trying.
fear. Yeah. Because I never actually tried and then failed. I never actually had that happen to me and then learned from the failure. I don't want that to ever happen again. It was I don't want that to ever happen. It never happened before, but I don't want that to ever happen.
Just play
so that
safe.
let me safeguard myself from that, protect myself from that future discouragement. And I mean, that carries into theater too. I mean, you go into an audition, you got 45 seconds to show them that you're good, and then who knows if you're ever going to hear back. It's easier to just not go, and then you'll never hear back because you didn't go.
Or develop a sense, I didn't get this part because I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
And
I wasn't there, so they can't cast me.
Right. But a lot of us who go there and then we develop a sense, they didn't call me back, or I didn't get this role. It's because of me.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody who has done a lot of casting, it's not about you.
No.
Because if I'm looking for a particular actor, I understand the role better than the actor. Because I'm going to give you sides, which are like 4 lines.
Yeah.
And I just want to see your take on that. I might like it, I might not like it, because I have a very vivid image of the character I wanna show in my movie, right?
Yeah.
And I have worked on that script with the writer for maybe a couple of years or longer period of time, and it's so engraved in me. Unless I find that person, I'm not going to have anyone else. So it's nothing about you.
Yeah.
Or not being a good performer, or some people say, oh, I forgot my line. Or maybe, I was looking fat than I should have.
Yeah.
Or I didn't memorize it well, or my choices were not great. No, that has nothing to do. And your choices might be great for a different kind of movie, a different part, right? Yeah. But it's difficult to accept.
Yeah.
So you didn't try, and what did your parents say?
Well, yeah. it was it got pretty rough in high school because I was visibly not trying. And
from dad's side or mom's side?
Oh, both.
Both.
They would lay into me. They're like, why aren't you studying? Why aren't you doing anything? You're just sitting here eating oatmeal cream pies watching The Biggest Loser. Like, that's not okay. So there was a lot of laziness on my part because of that. But there was also this want to seem like I had it all figured out. And a lot of that came from bullying in middle school. Everybody called me gay, twinkle toes, because I did ballet and gymnastics. So they're like, okay, you must be gay. Cool, awesome. And yeah, I thought a part of the reason why I wanted to move schools also was because I wanted to get rid of the bullies and have a new start. And I thought that going to a school with a football team and being on the football team might make people think I'm not gay, because I'm not. So just.
But you had a need to prove that.
Yeah.
How unfortunate.
Yeah.
How sad.
Yeah.
That by adopting certain hobbies, you just entitled someone you're not, right? And then you have to go and prove yourself, which in itself is so unfortunate. What do you think the role of the parents is in the development of the children, especially those who cross this line and end up becoming bullies?
That's a good question. A lot of the kids that I went to school with were well off. My family, we were on an upward trajectory. Those families were up here forever, like multi-generational wealth, right?
Right.
My family came from nothing and made something of themselves. So my sister and I were fortunate enough to be at a point where each thing we got, or everywhere we lived, or the schools we went to, got better as my parents became more affluent, right? Cars, we finally got cars when we were out in Long Island. So our way of life became better, but with a better way of life, in my opinion, parents who have always been at that level don't parent. They're not a parent. They are a person that makes a child, and then they got to still go to work, and they got to still make the money, or they got to go shopping because that's what they do with their girlfriends, and they got to do this, and they got to accumulate, and they have to.
And the kids are.
And the kids are there.
Nannies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the nannies are great, but the kid's only gonna. They're gonna get away with stuff. They're not gonna actually learn the values they need to learn, or what I would think are good values. But yeah, that's actually it's something that has gotten worse with time.
Yeah.
Parenting.
So I'm trying to understand. Let's say there are two people working in a household, then maybe one of them needs to sacrifice their job if the job requires them to step out of home for, say, 8 to 10 hours. And if it's going to affect the new creation.
Or, I mean, if you think about it, my parents weren't around for most of the day because I was going from school to ballet to gymnastics. And I was doing that myself. I was going on the subway when I was by myself at 7 years old and taking my sister with me.
Wow.
So we had a nanny when we were younger take us to things. But that being said, we were in programs that were there to teach us and reinforce what my parents already taught to us. So in ballet, you listen to the instructor. If you come in and you're not ready, you're reprimanded. You need to be ready to do things. You need to work hard. If you're not working hard, you're going to get reprimanded.
So you already had a strong foundation.
Yeah.
Your moral formation was already rooted in the belief system that you got to be punctual, you got to listen, you got to be attentive, you got to be a good boy. And I'm assuming other things too, you got to forgive, you got to be clean, you know?
Yeah.
That's great. And that's very important. I think that shapes your identity, who you are.
Yeah.
And the choices you made later on.
And that's why I loved being a gymnastics coach, because I got to then relive that on the other side. And I got to be that father figure to these girls and show them what a good human being does, how to care, how to push, how all these different things. So,
and that's also very important. People don't realize that your contribution as a parent in a child's life, it doesn't only go up until they are a good child or they're a good parent. It goes beyond that. How every household is a part of a larger community, in how each individual contributes directly or indirectly into the life of the broader community, forming a society.
Yeah.
And then we can call it a civilized society. And that starts at home.
Yeah.
It starts at teaching younger kids how to be good, how to behave. I was going to use
polite,
classic
even.
language. Behave. That's very powerful. And it doesn't matter if you are a parent or not, but as you mentioned, you are a fatherly figure. You are a brotherly figure. And I wish we could have more sense of that. Unfortunately, what I have noticed around us, either you are a man or a woman, you're a boy or a girl, which then just like gives a sense of um, just like sexual tension or something, because you can't just think otherwise. That's the way you by default are taught, whether through media or books or movies or TV show. And no wonder having just a friendship or just communal relationships across the border is not easy. It's something doesn't happen because of that image of sexualizing everything, you know?
And I think having a sister was, I mean, that's the best thing that ever happened to me. So that now I don't look at women as just a woman. That's somebody's daughter. That's somebody's sister. I can now be able to break that barrier of that sex on sex, relation, and just be, you're a human. You're a human and I care about you. And you happen to be the opposite sex, but who cares? You know? But yeah, I don't think that would come as naturally to me if I didn't have a sister. And if I didn't have such a great relationship with my mom too.
Yeah, I was gonna say that people who don't have sisters, but they can look at their cousins or mothers or motherly figures and learn something. But
teachers, if you have a female teacher, that's definitely such a great relationship you can build with your students. I mean, I remember teachers from when I was in 3rd, 4th grade. I had this one teacher who was the art teacher. She painted me a picture, and I still have it to this day because it meant something to me. You know, but yeah, those figures of authority in a child's life are so imperative because they're the ones who are going to make or break your parenting. At least for my parents and how I was raised. I like to say that I was pretty much raised by a full community of the people, not just my parents, but of the people my parents allowed me to be around. And they did a diligent job in trying to figure out what is the place that's going to give me the greatest sense of self and confidence and worth and potential, and help grow me as the human they wanted to help grow me to be.
Which has changed now. I think, as you mentioned, Manhattan has changed. I think this sense of having a community where you feel accountable to, it goes both ways. First, they have to provide themselves availability, and then there's an acceptance. But nowadays, it's like, who are you to tell me what to do, right? And I write, and I have freedom, and then it changes the whole dynamic, even at home. But going back to the struggles, you use a phrase, it became rough. What does that mean? High school.
And
then how did your parents deal with you. And what was your relationship with God at that stage? Did you seek some comfort or hope and healing through God? And how did you do that?
I think, well, what I mean by rough is yelling matches,
Mhm.
me throwing things.
Mm.
Um, I had anger issues.
Mm.
So I was very frustrated and angry because I wasn't I wasn't investing in myself to live to the potential that I had.
Mm.
Um, and then on top of that, my parents were mad at me for not trying to live up to my potential. So it was like they were mad at me, I was mad at me,
Mm.
that I couldn't do anything right.
Mm.
That's how I felt.
Mm.
So I lashed out in anger
Mm.
all the time.
Mm.
Like I would get home immediately in an angry mood
Mm.
for no reason whatsoever.
Mm.
And it didn't help. The bullying didn't help either.
Mm.
So it just all kind of like congealed into that.
Mm.
And I did find myself angry
Mm.
at God too
Mm.
for, okay, I thought things were supposed to be going well. Like it's high school.
Mm.
Like I'm supposed to be cool in high school, or high school's
Mm.
supposed to be fun. Why is this horrible? And thankfully we had a retreat. We went up to New Hampshire to a camp,
Mm.
summer camp for like the winter time, and it was like a long weekend through the school, and it was 4 day, I think, 4 day retreat with guest speakers, music, activities, all that kind of stuff. And I don't remember what song was playing, but I remember grabbing my sister and just crying to her and saying, I'm sorry because I've been a bad brother. I've just been yelling and screaming and angry and whatnot. And she forgave me. And after that, that a lot of that negativity, a lot of that anger subsided. Um, and there was also, since I said earlier that my dad were very similar. He ran track in high school and college, and I ran track in high school and college. And in high school, he decided that he was going to be my throws coach. So it was constantly well, I threw this. Well, I threw that. Well, and it was constantly a competition. With ballet and gymnastics, he never did them. So he could never tell me, well, I did.
Right.
But here, now I'm stepping into his realm, or what was his realm, He's old, so he can't do it. Yeah. But it became a competition, and he said, okay, I'm a senior now, so I can throw the women's high school disc, and you want to throw in college, so you're going to throw the male college disc, and we're going to see who can throw farther. And it was such frustration at my dad for not wanting to be my dad, but wanting to be my competition when all I needed was a dad. So I was very angry at him for that too. Until the end of high school, he finally, it was a whirlwind of events, but basically I qualified for nationals and I was supposed to go. And then I said, I don't want to go for my laziness and scaredness that I would fail, that I would be last. And he said, okay, cool. I'll forfeit your spot. And a week from nationals, I went to Disney with my choir. And on the plane ride back, I was watching ESPN, and there was a special on a kid with autism who moved schools, I think like 12 or 15 times in the span of a year.
Wow.
Because he was getting bullied so bad. And his parents would move him, trying to find somewhere that he could at least not come home crying, And he finally ended up at this high school, and the first day, he met with, I think it was a couple teachers, including the track coach. And the track coach said, well, I want you to come run track.
Hmm.
He goes, well, I can't run that well. And he goes, I don't care. Just come to the track and like walk, you know, you don't need to run. And he wound up being on the track team, and for meets, they would have a race just for him to run. And he's not running fast or anything. But
they made a rule for him.
They're creating community for him.
Exactly.
And I was thinking to myself, how can I deny the gifts that God has given me when someone who doesn't have those gifts is still running?
Right.
And I'm just going to go, oh, I'm blessed enough to be able to do this thing. Let me throw it away. So I called my dad and I said, hey, I want to do it. So a week before, I trained for 3 days and then rested for 4 days. And then I did nationals, and I did personal bests in 4 events.
Cool.
And my dad was so proud of me and just said, I'm so proud of you. And that made that
reconciliation.
Yeah.
That's great.